Good afternoon and welcome back to Low Expectations in Public Education. I was hoping to get this entry out a little bit sooner for all of you that signed up for the private blog. I was hoping to have a pleasant surprise. Maybe the administration, our superintendent, would exceed expectations on the timing that he gave for fulfillment of the very basic financial documents. Once again, this is one of the first of a number of forward requests that we have ready to go. But I guess the 6 to 8 weeks was not a joke. So, but we'll come back to that in a little bit. But I did at the end of the last entry, I did talk about the ability to save approximately $500,000 off the budget. So I want to get to that, and then we'll come back to a couple other updates for us. So when we think about our budget each year, there's something that happens when they come through with the unassigned fund balance. And what you'll see is we hear each year that a certain amount of that fund balance is going to be utilized for the next year's budget. Now, if you look at the graphs that I've put together here, you'll see that up on the left-hand side, I actually have a look at the fund balance as far as dollars, so just the actual dollars. So going from the end of 4-year-14, I kind of picked this because you think about the high school's been around 4 or 5 years. Ever since the high school came, we've had a degradation in our performance as a district, but also when you look at the way the finance have been handled. In 4-year-14, we started the year with a fund balance of under $200,000. A little bit over $200,000 was designated to be used for the next year's budget. Now, if that had actually happened, this gray bar that you see right here would not be there, because obviously if you have a couple $100,000 in the bank and you spend more than a couple $100,000, you end up with a negative balance. We actually saw the fund balance grow by over $400,000, so twice the amount. Now, when you look at full year 15 right next to it, blue is where we started, orange is what was supposed to be used, and then you see the gray is what we grew to, and we continue to grow, continue to grow. We talk about fund accounting. In actuality, it's all smoke and mirrors. They talk about bringing the money over because that's the part that they're going to do, but they never spend it. It's never spent anywhere. New money comes in, they spend that. But remember, the fund as they allocate out, we'd love to see where this money is supposed to be designated to. But as you can see over the years, we've gone from a fund balance of under $200,000 going into full year 14, of over $1.7 million full year 17. So each year there's a certain amount that's designated. In last year was $439,000. Now, another thing I want to touch on is if you look in the upper right-hand corner, you'll see the fund balance as far as percentage of overall budget with the HA debt and then without. The reason I did that is because with the HA debt, that debt actually isn't part of our operating budget. It's part of the overall budget because it's money that comes through, but we're on the hook for some of that debt, and the state has the largest majority of that. I think it's about 3/4 of that comes from the state and flows right through some $3 million. So it inflates our budget by about $4 million, makes our percentages skewed a little bit. But even with the debt, I'll walk you through this a little bit, and you can follow along down below as well. When you look at it, the state came up with a guidance that 3% or less is the amount for unassigned fund balances. Because remember, you think we as taxpayers are funding schools. We're not trying to fund an administration. We're not trying to fund somebody's retirement account. We're not trying to make our administrators rich. We're trying to give an education to our students. Well, when you look at it, the average over on what you see here on the left, these bars, those show the acceptable fund balance when you look at how much of a budget we had. Over on the right, it shows the actual fund balance percentages. So at the end of 14, we were under that 3%. And it shows over here in the blue that left about $156,000 before we got to the max. When you look at full year 15, then to 16, then to 17, it grows up to 5.7%. And you can see now we're over $810,000 over, and that's if we're using the $30 million budget number, or just over 30. If you go down the bottom left, you'll see a couple other graphs, same showing, except remove that approximate $4 million from the budget. It's actually a little bit over that, but we'll just use 4 for easy math. And you can see that throughout the years, we max out at $780,000. Now remember, we have over $1.7 million in our unassigned fund balance, and look at how these bars grow. So the whole smoke and mirrors show of moving that money over but never spending it, we actually grow each and every year. So the way you save $500,000 or approximately there on your budget is you take whatever budget the administration gives to the school board, and the school board rubber stamps, which happens each year. Not many people on the school board understand the school funding. Not many people on the school board have a finance background, and not many people on the school board really have an idea of how this is supposed to work. And apparently, having money in an unassigned fund balance is better than spending on our students. I don't think that as an individual, it's just collectively, they seem unable to act. So when you look at the bottom right-hand corner, you can see the state unassigned fund balance should equal or be less than 3%. And so when you look at RSUs, it's greater than 3% for over 3 years now. When you look at the way the budget transfers from the unassigned fund balance to the next year, that never really happens, because remember, they made it very clear to us, if you've been following along with this, that it's fund accounting, and you have to understand that the money is all in the general fund until it's spent, and then it gets registered to or assigned to the right cost center. Well, if it's never spent, it's never assigned to a cost center. Interesting, isn't it? So if you skip down to the bottom, you see $439,000 for the full year 17 budget was designated from the previous year to be used towards the budget. Total budget was a little over $30 million. So if you take this 439 that was never spent, never intended to be spending, because we underspent not only that 439 but another 220,000, your actual budget would have gone from over 30 million to 29 million and change, 629,642,235. So the overall expenditures, right, now they also came in under that number. So they only spent about 29,400,000 and change. Okay, so you have a much more accurate accounting of your budgeting and your expenditures, because you would see here that no money was ever taken out of the unassigned fund balance. None of it was ever spent. Supposed to be spent over the next in a 3-year period, and the fund balance grew from 1.49 to 1.710. So this just provides a much more accurate. So last year, going in 16-17, if everybody had just said, hey, if we had this kind of control, which we should have as a community, or if the board had said, hey, let's do something a little bit more transparent and be a little bit more forthright with how we're spending our money, they would have just left that money there. We would have started the year, instead of showing a dip, we would actually had a much higher fund balance. We would have 1.49, and then when we didn't spend 220,000 and it grew to 1.71, we would have shown that 149 never went anywhere. On their papers, they'll show the 1.49 goes down by 435,000. So now they only have unassigned fund balance of 900 and change. But no, the money never goes anywhere. Remember, fund accounting, they made it very clear to us. Doesn't get assigned till it's spent. Well, if it's never spent, last money in, first money out. It's kind of like investing. If you have a long-term loser, you can't have a quick trade, make some money, and then take the long-term tax benefit. You can't have it both ways. So we'll just take their accounting, we'll flip it over. We could save some money, we'd have a lower overall budget, and then we'd really be able to see. Now, if we overspend, which we haven't done in a number of years, but if we actually did overspend, we have $1.7 million safety net. Or we could take the 930,000 we're over where we're supposed to be, or the 810,000 we're over, if you look depending on which one of these two numbers you use. And can you imagine what we could do with that amount of money? This is why I will never, with a good conscience, vote for a budget that cuts teacher positions. Actually, with a good conscience, I can't vote for a budget in which our current superintendent was a part of, or our current chair of the finance committee or budget committee were a part of, because this is what they presented in the past. And it's very hard to trust numbers when you know that those numbers don't really match reality. If you have any questions about the matching of numbers with reality here in RSU 22, go back to the public blog and just start scrolling backwards. You can start from the last blog and go backwards, or you can start from the first one and go forward. It'll give you the exact same picture. So now what do we do? Okay. Well, as I said on the last blog, we do have, I've done a couple of different things. I've tried to wrap up what I consider my obligation as a public servant. And I did work through the Department of Education, and we did go through the State Commission. And we do have we have an approved petition that needs to be signed by over 2,100 people in our community: Hamden, Newburgh, Winterport, and Frankfort. I've talked to a number of people lately, and I've gotten asked the question probably 10, 15 times, is the petition in? No. I'm not sure if I wasn't real clear, but I'm not going to be able to get 2,100 signatures by myself. As most of you know, I have a more than a full-time job, and it keeps me quite busy, and there's a number of activities that happen. I am trying, but I'm pretty confident I won't get to 2,100. But the point of this is, and the reason I threw out the challenge, can we get 2,100 signatures, or 2,200 be better, 3,000 be even better, 4,000 even better, just make sure, because, if someone challenges a signature or whatever. These signatures won't be made public until we actually turn them into Augusta. Now, the reason I put out the challenge to see if we could get them done before we get those documents, because I thought it would be a hoot, 725 documents that are in the office should be much easier to attain than 2,100 signatures, considering most of us probably don't know 2,100 people. But I think, and I know with the number of people that we have here between time, talent, and resources, that together we could organize ourselves to get this done. The weather's getting nicer. Summer's right around the corner. So here's the idea. Wouldn't it be nice to be able to go ahead and show up at a school board meeting before the budget actually comes into play, and let them know that we just delivered this to Augusta for the DOE inspection, which will get the whole ball rolling. The full request, we're still going to continue to work through. Through that, we're looking for very specific transactions, which will shed light on some of the things that I haven't been very direct with in the past because I don't have the full documentation yet. I have enough to make about 60 to 70% of the picture, but before you actually make a claim, you want to make sure you have all that documentation. So there's where I'm working on that as well. Now, so with the petition, anybody that's interested in that, I know some people approach me, I'll get the petition out to you if anybody's willing to help organize. We must know some people, because I've met some of these people over the last couple of years, where we may be disgruntled, we may be upset. If you think there's at all that there may be something going on within our district and the finances that is not right, I can tell you what's happening isn't right. But if you have an inkling that it's not right, one great way to find out, don't take my word for it. I always tell people, don't take my word for it. Bring a qualified person in. When I get the forward request, one of the neat things about the partnership is that I am doing the front work. I'm the face of it. Why put anybody else out in the public so they can get berated by school members and or administrators? Why have their attack? Now also, so that we can have that going. The other thing that will be happening while that forward is going on is with this private blog. And I'm also working on a case study in which it'll be interesting to see the reaction of some folks when things become public. Certain email communications, of which people might not be so proud of. And now remember, the first red flags were raised by someone with almost 2 decades, or now over 2 decades of financial experience, of over 2 decades of studying financial crimes. Whether it comes to, whatever you talk about, right? If you think about embezzlement, you think about insider fraud, you think about misappropriation of funds, you think about, inappropriate use of school facilities. When you think about the cars, you think about the fleet that we have. When you think about a number of different things that could come out, someone that has over 2 decades of experience first raised red flags back in June of 2016. It is documented through a public email with documents, and each one of those, if you notice, I've documented all of my actions. They're all very public. So that as we go forward, as some of those get brought out, we also have audio recordings of some board members in certain positions, of which very inappropriate discussions. Some of that will be coming out as we go ahead. But first, the right thing to do is to be able to work on this petition and get that out, and also through the full request. So if you'd like to keep up to date, just let me know. I'm more than happy to help any way that I can. I do just want to honestly let everybody know that I am not getting 2,100 signatures. That's just not, I did the math, it's just not possible. But I do know that over 1,772 people voted for me. I do know a lot of you are active on social media. I do know that a lot of you do know a lot of people. And if we can all talk to a few people, as I've tried to, and see if some people help us out. I'm still plugging away with the signatures. We have a few hundred maybe so far right now. We'll continue to work on it as it gets warmer. And we'll continue to work on this. Our superintendent's contract ends in June of 2020. So if you feel very comfortable with the way our district is going and you want to maintain that for another couple of years, sit back, relax, and enjoy the ballgame. But if you think that we could have a better district, and I have claimed over and over and over again, and I did it a couple more times this week, and we should be the crown jewel of the state of Maine. And the only reason we aren't, because we have all the resources we need, we have the teachers, we have teachers that want to come back here. The only reason we aren't is because we have a system administration team that is antiquated and possibly incompetent. The other piece that's interesting, we want to save even more money, as you can see through the full request, and as you look at some of the entries I've had before, we pay somewhere between a 20 and 30% premium for inefficiency. Once again, this year, and if you look at the Finance Committee minutes from back in February, our group is going to come in not such a great shape. So if you look at this right here, these are the Finance Committee minutes. A couple of things I want you to think about. One, our superintendent. Here, we pay for his disability insurance. I'm not sure why we do that with someone that's already retired, come back and been rehired, whatever. If you're looking at his contract, someone thought that was a great idea. Well, that's going up in cost. So instead of paying for the policy, there was an agreement made that we'll just take because that's going to go almost quadruple. We're going to take the $1,100 that was going towards disability insurance as a benefit, and we're going to go ahead and put that into his 403B. So his cash compensation is going up by a little bit over $1,100. The other thing that was kind of interesting in here is if you scroll up a little bit, you'll see that as we look at how we're doing as far as the financing and how we're doing, you'll see that where was it? Yeah, so we had, as far as the warrants, they went over how we're pacing so far. And if you come down here, it will tell you. That we are over on system administration again. Okay, so here, Article 6, we'll have over expenditure in the salary line in fiscal services section due to length of time previous assistant superintendent remained on the payroll. Remember last year during the budget season, and the explanation for why the system administration line item was more was because of the fact that we'd have 2 assistant superintendents for a while, because one was retiring at the end of June, but getting paid through November. Now here, we're over because apparently they're on longer. Does that mean we're still paying them? The person that retired, I don't know. But I thought that was pretty interesting that system administration apparently would be over budget once again. Remember last year, our budget chair did not really know how system administration works because he thought all that money was there. But there's actually system administration actually is not only under that one line item, but the maintenance of the building, that's somewhere else. Some of the other items that are paid in other spots. And then down here, you can see where it looks like the VZ contract, I'm not sure if it's finalized, may have been lost altogether. Not only the superintendent part, but also the business part. Some people may blame me. I don't know. I just shared documents that were created by administration, but that would make one wonder. So if the superintendent, if you go back to great moments in on the blog with great moments when they talk about the VZ contract, where I actually show some of the school board meeting, $12,000 offset for the superintendent. So does that mean our superintendent's getting a $12,000 decrease in his salary because he no longer has a VZ contract? Interesting. I'm assuming everybody else would lose their stipend. So think about it. We have somebody that is very comfortable being dishonest with our public and saying things that are inaccurate, like Bangor raised lengthened the school day at one of their schools at no additional cost to the budget, which never happened. About teacher attrition, continued to talk about no more than 1 in 5 when actually it was 1 out of 3. District Administrative Leadership Institute. Did you know a couple years ago we paid over $10,000 for professional development and travel for our superintendent? One of that $2,500 that was District Administrative Leadership Institute, of which he claimed was a accomplishment, and it only cost us a little over $200, which is actually the money he spent down there. So someone's very confident, but as you can see, they're building up a great deal of money, $1.7 million. We go into studies. I just ask people, become educated on what you're voting. I myself, in good conscience, I said before, it's going to be very hard for me to vote for a budget, because of not people that are putting together, but also we look at the performance in the past. So we appreciate you joining. If you want to continue, I'll continue to have this open to you. And if you know anybody else that might like to see it, please share Public Prog as you're talking about the petition if people have questions. And appreciate your time. Thank you.